Have you ever found yourself lying awake at 2 a.m., replaying that awkward conversation from 3 days ago? Or maybe you catch yourself saying, I always mess things up after making a simple mistake. If this sounds familiar, you might be caught in what psychologists call a negative thinking loop. And trust me, you're not alone. We're going to explore 7 clear signs that you're stuck in this mental pattern, and more importantly, we'll talk about what you can do about it. Because here's the thing. Recognizing these patterns is the first step to breaking free from them. So grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive into this together. You might be surprised by how much you relate to what we're about to discuss. Before we jump into the signs, let's quickly define what we're talking about. A negative thinking loop is basically when your mind gets stuck on repeat, cycling through the same pessimistic thoughts over and over again. It's like having a broken record player in your head that only plays the sad songs. These loops can happen to anyone, whether you're dealing with stress at work, relationship challenges, or just the general ups and downs of life. The key thing to understand is that this isn't a character flaw or a sign of weakness. It's actually a very human response to trying to solve problems or protect ourselves from future hurt. But when these thinking patterns become our default mode, they can really start to impact our daily lives, our relationships, and our overall well-being. So let's look at the warning signs. Sign number 1, you're always expecting the worst. This is what psychologists call catastrophizing, and it's probably one of the most common signs of negative thinking loops. If you find yourself jumping straight to the worst-case scenario in almost every situation, this might be you. Let's say your boss asks to see you in their office tomorrow morning. Instead of thinking, maybe they want to discuss that project I've been working on, your mind immediately goes to, I'm definitely getting fired. I'll never find another job. I'll end up homeless. Or maybe your partner is a little quiet after dinner, and instead of considering they might just be tired from a long day, you start thinking, they're obviously unhappy with me. They probably want to break up. I'm going to end up alone. This kind of thinking creates a lot of unnecessary anxiety and stress. You're essentially living in a future that probably won't even happen. And here's the kicker. Even when things work out fine, your brain doesn't really learn from it. It just moves on to the next potential catastrophe. If you recognize this pattern in yourself, you're not broken. You're just someone whose brain has learned to prepare for the worst as a way of trying to protect you. But there are definitely healthier ways to approach uncertainty. Sign number 2, you replay past mistakes on loop. We've all been there, lying in bed, suddenly remembering that time in high school when you said something embarrassing in front of your crush, or obsessing over a presentation that didn't go perfectly, even though it happened months ago. But if this is happening regularly and you find yourself constantly rehashing past mistakes, missed opportunities, or things you wish you'd said or done differently, you might be stuck in a rumination loop. This type of thinking often starts with phrases like, if only I had, or I should have, or why did I say that? And here's what's tricky about it. It feels productive. It feels like you're learning from your mistakes or preparing to do better next time. But here's the reality. There's a big difference between healthy reflection and destructive rumination. Healthy reflection involves looking at what happened, extracting useful lessons, and then moving forward. Rumination, on the other hand, is like being stuck in quicksand. The more you struggle with those thoughts, the deeper you sink. Think about it this way. If you spilled coffee on your shirt this morning, would it make sense to spend the rest of the day staring at the stain and thinking about how clumsy you are? Of course not. You'd clean it up, maybe change your shirt, and get on with your day. The same principle applies to mental spills. Acknowledge them, learn what you can, and then move forward. Sign number 3, you use absolute language about yourself. Listen to how you talk to yourself throughout the day. Do you find yourself using words like always, never, everything, or nothing when describing your experiences or abilities? I never do anything right. I always mess up important conversations. Nothing ever works out for me. Everyone else has it figured out except me. This kind of all-or-nothing thinking is like looking at the world through a funhouse mirror. It distorts reality in ways that aren't helpful or accurate. Life is rarely that black and white, but when we're stuck in negative thinking loops, our brain starts to filter out evidence that contradicts these absolute statements. For example, if you believe I never do anything right, your brain will focus on and remember all the times things didn't go perfectly, while conveniently forgetting or minimizing all the things you do well every single day. The truth is, you're probably doing way more things right than you give yourself credit for. You got up this morning, you're taking care of your basic needs, you're watching this video because you care about improving your mental well-being. These might seem small, but they're evidence that contradicts those never and always statements. Sign number 4, you have trouble accepting compliments. When someone compliments you, what's your first reaction? If you immediately deflect, minimize, or find reasons why they're wrong, this could be another sign you're stuck in negative thinking patterns. Maybe someone tells you, "Great job on that presentation," and instead of saying thank you, you respond with, "Oh, it wasn't that good," or "I messed up the middle part," or "Anyone could have done it." Or perhaps when a friend says you look nice, your brain immediately starts listing all the things that are wrong with your appearance that they obviously didn't notice. This happens because when we're caught in negative thinking loops, compliments feel inconsistent with our internal narrative about ourselves. It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. The positive feedback just doesn't compute with the story we've been telling ourselves. But here's what's interesting. Other people often see us more clearly than we see ourselves. They're not looking at us through the lens of our own self-criticism and doubt. When someone gives you a genuine compliment, they're sharing their honest perception. And that perception is just as valid as your own, if not more objective. Learning to accept compliments gracefully isn't about becoming arrogant or developing an inflated ego. It's about being open to a more balanced view of yourself. Sign number 5. You compare your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. We live in an age of social media where everyone's life looks perfectly curated and effortlessly amazing. And if you find yourself constantly comparing your real, messy, complicated life to the polished versions you see online or even in person, you might be feeding into negative thinking patterns. This comparison trap is sneaky because it seems logical. You see someone else's success, happiness, or put-together life, and you think, "Why can't I have that?" Or, "What's wrong with me that I'm struggling when everyone else seems fine?" But here's what we often forget. You're comparing your internal experience, complete with all your doubts, fears, struggles, and imperfect moments, to other people's external presentation. It's like comparing a rough draft to a published book, or a candid photo to a professional headshot. Everyone has challenges. Everyone has moments of doubt, days when they don't feel like getting out of bed, relationships that require work, and goals that feel impossibly far away. The difference is that most people don't post about these struggles on Instagram or talk about them at dinner parties. When you catch yourself in this comparison trap, try to remember that you're seeing a highlight reel, not the full movie. And your own life, with all its ups and downs, is just as valid and valuable as anyone else's. Sign number 6, small setbacks feel like major disasters. How do you react when something minor goes wrong? If spilling coffee on your shirt, getting stuck in traffic, or receiving constructive feedback at work feels like the end of the world, this could indicate you're stuck in negative thinking patterns. When we're caught in these loops, our emotional responses can become disproportionate to the actual situation. It's like having a smoke alarm that goes off every time you burn toast. Technically, it's doing its job, but the response is way bigger than the actual threat. This happens because negative thinking patterns can put us in a state of chronic stress and hypervigilance. When you're already feeling overwhelmed or down, even small challenges can feel like the straw that breaks the camel's back. Think about it this way. If you're carrying a heavy backpack all day, even adding a feather might feel like too much. But if your backpack is light, you could probably handle adding a few more items without much trouble. Negative thinking loops are like carrying around that heavy emotional backpack. Everything feels harder when you're already weighed down by pessimistic thoughts. The good news is that as you start to recognize and address these thinking patterns, you'll likely find that you have much more resilience than you realized. Those small setbacks will start to feel like what they actually are: minor inconveniences rather than major catastrophes. Sign number 7. You struggle to see solutions or possibilities. When you're facing a challenge, do you immediately feel stuck or hopeless? Do problems feel insurmountable, even when logically you know there might be ways to address them? This tunnel vision is one of the most limiting aspects of negative thinking loops. When our minds are stuck on repeat with pessimistic thoughts, it becomes really hard to see alternatives, possibilities, or creative solutions. It's like being in a maze where you keep walking down the same dead-end path over and over, convinced there's no way out, when actually there are several other routes you just haven't noticed yet. This isn't about positive thinking or pretending problems don't exist. It's about recognizing that when we're caught in negative loops, our problem-solving abilities become compromised. We become so focused on what's wrong, what could go wrong, or why something won't work, that we miss opportunities and solutions that might be right in front of us. Sometimes the first step out of this pattern is simply acknowledging that there might be possibilities you haven't considered yet. You don't have to see them all clearly right away. Just being open to the idea that they exist can start to shift your perspective. If you've recognized yourself in several of these signs, first of all, take a deep breath. Awareness is actually a huge step forward, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. Negative thinking loops are incredibly common, and they're not a reflection of your intelligence, worth, or character. They're more like mental habits that developed for understandable reasons, usually to try to protect you from disappointment, rejection, or failure. The challenge is that while these patterns might have served a purpose at some point, they often end up creating more problems than they solve. But the good news is that just like any habit, thinking patterns can be changed with awareness, patience, and practice. Some strategies that many people find helpful include practicing mindfulness to catch these thoughts as they happen, challenging negative thoughts by asking, "Is this actually true?" or "What would I tell a friend in this situation?" and gradually exposing yourself to small risks or challenges to build confidence. Professional support can also be incredibly valuable. Therapists, especially those trained in cognitive behavioral therapy, are skilled at helping people identify and change unhelpful thinking patterns. Here's something I want you to remember as we wrap up. Struggling with negative thinking doesn't make you weak, broken, or fundamentally flawed. It makes you human. Our brains evolved to be really good at spotting potential threats and problems. It's actually a survival mechanism. The challenge is that in our modern world, this system can become overactive, causing us to see threats and problems where they don't really exist, or to blow minor issues out of proportion. If you found yourself nodding along to several of these signs, please be gentle with yourself. Change takes time, and beating yourself up for having these thinking patterns will only feed into the very loops you're trying to break. Every small step you take toward awareness and change matters. Every time you catch yourself catastrophizing and gently redirect your thoughts. Every time you accept a compliment instead of deflecting it. Every time you remind yourself that a small setback is just that, small. These moments of awareness and choice are like tiny investments in your mental well-being. They might not feel dramatic in the moment, but they compound over time into significant positive changes. So I'm curious, did any of these signs particularly resonate with you? Have you noticed any of these patterns in your own thinking? I'd love to hear about your experiences in the comments below. Sometimes just sharing what we're going through can be incredibly powerful and remind us that we're not alone in these struggles. And if you found this helpful, consider subscribing for more content about mental health, personal growth, and building a more balanced relationship with your thoughts and emotions. Remember, taking care of your mental well-being isn't selfish. It's necessary, and you deserve to have a peaceful, supportive relationship with your own mind.